Hi everyone, thank you for having me. So like Iman mentioned, today I'm going to be talking about what is a DAO. I'm sure you've seen this acronym around, and today I'm going to try to simplify it and take you guys through it. So before we get started, a little bit about myself. I'm Joanna Atiya, I'm Jordanian Palestinian. I grew up in Jordan but studied management engineering at the University of Waterloo. Today I'm the co-founder of Fuse, the MENA Cardano community, as well as a contributor in Catalyst, which is one of the biggest innovation funds in the world. And like Iman mentioned, it's my birthday, and it's a pleasure to be here spending it with you guys, talking about a topic I'm extremely passionate about, which is DAOs. So what is a DAO? A DAO is a decentralized autonomous organization. So what I'm going to do is probably go with you together through each of the words and what they mean. So decentralized, what do we mean by that? Decentralized means that there's no one central governing body that's making the decisions. It means that there's multiple participants, there's numerous participants, and there's no one participant that has a disproportionate amount of power that could make decisions for everyone else. Autonomous means that there's freedom for anyone to be involved, and that there's freedom for the organization and the entity to self-govern itself through the engagement and the collaboration of the community. And lastly, the organization. So who's the organization? The organization is just those group of people that are working together with a shared vision and mission, and they have a common goal of working in the best interest of the entity as well as themselves. Awesome. So then what the goal of DAOs are is they want to reach decentralized governance. So let's talk a little bit about what governance means. Governance is essentially the group of people that work together to make decisions on the direction that an entity or an organization needs to go. And it's who decides on who makes those decisions, as well as who pays for those decisions that are being made. And those people usually, actually, let me talk about how governance is applied today. So in our world today, how we see governance applied across industries and in different applications is that there's a centralized body, there's single entities or stakeholders. Those are the ones that are being responsible for making those decisions. It's a top-down approach. So if we want to talk about, let's say, updates made to iOS, we have Apple. If Android, we have Google. We have Microsoft for Windows as well. So when it's centralized, when all these decisions are centralized, there's a lot of power that comes with this decision making, and it's very prone to corruption, discrimination, segmentation, as we see in our world today. So DAOs are meant to disrupt that and change that the way that works. So how do DAOs work? What are DAOs essentially? So they're described as an online community with a shared wallet and tools directing how to use it. So what do we mean by the community? The community are those participants that are working together with, like I said, a shared vision and mission. And they usually have like a participation token if it's in a project, and they can participate in a DAO by making proposals to changes, voting on those proposals, or just giving any sort of improvements in tooling and infrastructure to build the DAO. The shared wallet, so every DAO needs a treasury. It needs a self-sustainable fund, a fund that grows with the entity and the organization as it grows. So across different projects, there's different mechanisms to keep those treasuries filled. There's inflation mechanisms, there's through either transaction fees, any sort of mechanism that works for the entity and helps grow the fund as the organization funds and as the decisions need to be funded from this treasury. Lastly, there's different voting mechanisms. So every participant in the DAO can vote on the changes through different voting mechanisms. For example, there's projects that apply a voting mechanism of one person, one vote, or one token, one vote, or there's this concept of liquid democracy, delegative democracy, where I can give my vote to an expert or someone else that can vote on a proposal for myself. There's others like meritocracy or reputation-based mechanisms where you within the community can build merit and credibility for yourself, and then your vote could count as could have more weight than other people. Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about the benefits that DAOs bring to us. Obviously, the first thing is decentralization. Like I mentioned, it goes from one to many. So this means that it's less prone for collusion, and the decisions are made across the board. The other one is anti-fragility. Like I mentioned, also because of its decentralized natures, there's no one single point of failure. Participation, because of the autonomy built into it, anyone can participate regardless of their background, their ethnicity, their gender, and whatnot. Collective intelligence, which I think is pretty amazing, because now the decisions are made across the board with all sorts of backgrounds. We reach what's called collective intelligence. We're getting ideas and proposals and everything from a variety of people from a wider audience, and together we create what's called a collective intelligence. Obviously, publicity and transparency, because everything that's posted from the DAO is posted on the blockchain, so the community can anytime trace back transactions, decisions, and whatnot. And then obviously the community. I think this is pretty amazing that with these projects and with these DAOs, there's a very strong sense of community, and people come together to share something that they're passionate about and to work on a common goal. But just like everything, if there's benefits, there's also limitations. And some of the limitations we see today are the speed, for example, because DAOs are a very, very new concept. So there's not a lot of tools and infrastructure that could be applied to implementing those DAOs. So then the speed of application is a little slower, as well as because those decisions go from like a single entity to multiple people, obviously reaching consensus with a huge amount of people is going to be slower. So speed is one of the limitations. Education, also because it's very new, so there's not that much education or awareness about DAOs or how they're applied. So if you want to implement a DAO, it's going to be a slower process for you as well as security. So I forgot to mention that the DAOs and the processes of how DAOs are run are all coded into smart contracts. So obviously with that, if there's vulnerability in the code or if the security infrastructure isn't in place, then that could be a problem. So some examples of DAOs, there's innovation fund. So let me just say this really quickly. Anything could be a DAO. If there's a group of people that have like a shared mission and vision and they have a community, then they could work on implementing a DAO. So there's innovation funds, there's social funds, empowerment funds, philanthropic funds, protocol funds, there's media funds, there's any sort of DAOs in any application that you can think of. So what do DAOs mean for women empowerment? And this is a very good example that we're here with NoonDAO. But what I think is because of the autonomy that's built into DAOs and how they're the infrastructure behind them, anyone could be involved, like I mentioned. So regardless of your gender, regardless of your race, regardless of your background, your ethnicity, you can be a core contributor in those decisions that are very important to growing the organization. And as we're moving into a digital era and we're building this parallel universe, it's very important to not bring with us all of the biases and the corruption and the discrimination that exists in our world today. And I think through DAOs, we could have a very good chance of doing that as women. So yeah, do you guys have any questions?